last episode. The actor who played David Lee Roth, he was a great guest, gave us a lot of insight and behind-the-scenes information about playing Roth. Hopefully there's a Blu-ray that'll come out in the future that'll have deleted scenes with some extras, and I'm not sure if Netflix films do Blu-rays or what the situation with that is, but I'm sure there's a market for the Motley Crue Blu-ray, and that's already a successful movie. And I tell you, Dave, I don't know if you heard, but the soundtrack to that film has put Motley Crue in the top 10 of the charts. What do you think of that?
I did see that. Yeah,
it's crazy.
I did see that.
Yeah, and let me tell you something. There's a lot more interest in Motley Crue now, and, this is how, these young people are now, like, this is like a new band to them. It's hysterical. And believe it or not, who's getting the feedback on this, Dave? Vince Neil's solo band is selling out all over the country now. How do you like that? How do you like that? So, that wraps up our mailbag segment. And we are onto our Van Halen II deep dive discussion, followed by our interview with Bradford Thomason, the director of Lost Weekend short film on Van Halen's 1984 MTV Classic Contest. That's all coming up. Take a listen.
We don't plan anything. It just comes. And it's actually a strange phenomenon when we get in the studio and whoever it may be coming up with the seed of an idea, it just snowballs. We all get excited and, and a lot of times it starts out with a drum beat.
If you would like to send us a letter asking a question or making a statement or whatever you'd like to say, you can send it to ddunchainedpodcast@gmail.com.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Damon Johnson from Brother Kane and Black Star Riders, and you are listening to Dave and Dave Unchained. Crank it up.
Need a laugh? Check out the Funny How Comedy Podcast, which focuses on upbeat conversations with legendary comedians. It's free on Spreaker and iTunes. Check us out on Facebook at Funny How Comedy Podcast, on Twitter at Funny How Podcast, on Instagram at Funny How Comedy Podcast, or email us at funnyhowcomedypodcast@gmail.com.
Hi, I'm Jackie Martling. My brand new autobiography, The Joke Man, Bow to Stern, is being released. Go to JackieTheJokeMan.com. Great holiday gifts, easy to wrap. I guarantee you are going to love this book.
From very early on, that it was kind of ingrained on us that if you're doing something that you like, then that is of the utmost importance. Because in our family, there were two opposites. There was my dad, the musician, the guy, the happy-go-lucky guy, and let's have a drink, that type of thing. The other side was our mother. He says, without a suit and tie, you ain't diddly. You're nothing. You come by, visit today or tomorrow, and she'll say, Alex, when are you going to get a job? She's 75. And, Mom, does it really make any difference?
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are here to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Van Halen II. So, Van Halen II, Dave, as we all know, this is the sequel to the eponymous classic album, and it came out in 1979, March 23rd of 1979 to be exact, and it is a classic in and of itself. Recorded in 6 days, from December 10th to December 16th, 1978, only 1 week after Van Halen finished their first tour supporting their debut album. Can you believe that, Dave, in 6 days?
I know, that is probably the craziest part, is that they had a week off. I think they went on vacation somewhere. Then came back, banged out the album in about 6 days.
Unbelievable.
And maybe a little more than that, because I think there was some vocal work after that in post-production and, yada, yada, yada.
Right, just
stuff
clean
like
up.
that.
Just clean up.
Right,
yeah.
Right. But still, the album was released in March.
Unbelievable.
So, and we'll get into more of this later, but,
yeah.
I mean, a testament to how hot they were.
Oh, yeah.
That they had songs ready, that they played them, and they were bing, bang, boom, done, ready. And before you know it, they were off on tour again.
Absolutely. Absolutely. They really are unbelievable. It just goes to show you the band was in its prime. They were really all together and tight. They were coming off the road. Very often when you come off the road, the band is at a hot spot. They've been playing, they're jiving. This is what Gary talked about. Gary Sharon said, in hindsight, I really wish we had made the Van Halen 3 album after the tour, because we would have come off the road and they had a little more of a vibe and a little more of a chemistry, and he thought it would have been better if they went into the studio then. But also looking back at that time, it might have been a little awkward if they just went out on tour with Gary with old Van Halen material too, right? That would have been kind of strange if Gary just joined the band and started playing both Sam and Dave. Maybe it would have worked. I don't know. Maybe they could have done a half Sam, half Dave set list and really gone at it with Sharon and sold that, but I don't know. I think looking back, it's just a rough timing. But regardless, Van Halen 2 went platinum in less than 2 months. This shows how hot this band was. And it sold, currently to date, about 6 million copies. We think it should be, it might even be over 6 at this point. We don't have an exact count, but we know it's right around there. And it went up to number 6 on the charts. We all know the fabled tale of how David Lee Roth broke his foot on the back cover because he was doing those leaps for the photos, and he ended up breaking his right foot, which caused them to then have those photos where Dave had a cane with those hot nurses around him and everything. So that was kind of funny. Another thing to note, and we should really put this to bed, and Dave, we've talked about this before, but I think it's an important point to bring up. This album is 31 minutes and 36 seconds in length. You know how Diver Down is always getting kicked around for being short in length?
Yes, I do.
Well, you know what it's like to be short in length, Dave, because that's a common...
I can't believe I
You walked right into it.
Walked right into it. But I blame myself.
Yeah, you blame yourself. So this is 10 songs on this album, and I always felt it could have been like maybe 1 or 2 more, because there was plenty to work with there in terms of material, but Van Halen 1 was 11 songs, and this one is 10. So Van Halen 1 was 35 minutes and 34 seconds. Women and Children First was 33 minutes and 35 seconds. Fair Warning is 31 minutes and 11 seconds. Diver Down, apparently, is 31 minutes and 24 seconds. And 1984 is 33 minutes and 17 seconds. So they're all in a very similar size realm. And let's remember that these guys were working with vinyl. There was no such thing as iTunes or even CDs at the time where you could play a long extended album. However, very often, Diver Down gets kicked around for its time length. It's really right in line with the other size. This was recorded at Sunset Sound in Hollywood, California. The cover has basically, it's pretty plain. It's putting the VH logo, hard and heavy, branding right on the front, clear and simple. Obviously, this album was put together pretty quickly, so it wasn't a lot of time to be fooling around with art, but I think they really wanted to get that logo out there. In the late 70s, a lot of bands were riding on logos with Aerosmith, the Stones, all that kinds of stuff. So kids were drawing them on their notebooks. Even Joe Rogan mentioned it on his podcast, that he used to draw the VH logo on his notebooks, and I think that's part of the branding. This album really is, in my opinion, a perfect bookend to Van Halen 1. It's really almost like Rocky 2. It's a complete continuation of the story. And Van Halen were just running so hot right out the gate for Warner Brothers. And Warner Brothers really wanted them to keep the ball rolling. And this album was important in proving Van Halen wasn't a fluke, but a major player in the future of hard rock, and it did just that. So, Dave, what are your initial thoughts on Van Halen 2 to start off?
Well, you're right. It is very much a sequel to the first album.
Oh, yeah.
And your points about the time length and the artwork and all that just point to the fact how they were very anxious to get an album out.
Oh, yeah.
When I say they, it was probably more the record company than it was the band. But even though the album's only about half an hour long, you got to remember, these guys are banging out an album every year.
Absolutely.
for 5 years in a row.
Absolutely.
And in fact, I mean, they had like 6 albums in 7 years.
I know.
The first 6 albums.
Right.
So
right.
even though they're only a half an hour long,
right.
I mean, you're still getting an album a year.
Yeah.
And yeah, the artwork is just the logo. It is very much of its time, that late 70s, early 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Shiny metallic logo when the logo meant everything.
Right.
But still a fabulous logo and a fabulous piece of artwork in itself.
Sure.
But yeah, it was just the logo slap. But that's how everything was so quick.
Yeah, but Dave, keep in mind, remember this, and I'm sure there's plenty of our listeners that remember this like you and me. Back in the day, they were albums on display. So when you walked into the record store, your eye would go right to it. You could identify it right away because an album cover was sitting in these little folders, and you could see that logo with the bright, I shouldn't say bright, it's more of a not a royal blue, but like almost like between a navy and a royal, popping right out. It was very identifiable, and not like Fair Warning or Diver Down, which were not as identifiable, but that was, there was no mistaking that was the new Van Halen album.
Oh, sure, absolutely. And and you're right, artwork was certainly the name of the game.
Yeah.
And that logo was probably my favorite logo out of all of them. I like that better than the first one.
Okay.
I think the first one on the first album where they have the name in the middle, it kind of crowds it up too much, and it just it doesn't work for me. But regardless, I mean, this is 1979 too. The other thing you have to remember is, like you said, the album went to number 6.
Oh yeah.
This is at like the height of disco.
Oh God, yeah.
And here is call them what you want, hard rock, heavy metal, whatever band.
Yeah.
Storming up the charts, mostly on the strength of a single, which we'll talk about a little later. But it's still they didn't have the sophomore slump.
Nope.
Right? I mean, they pulled it off.
Yeah, very much so. And we'll get right into it here. It starts off with, in my opinion, was a mistake. They started off with You're No Good, which is a cover of a song that Linda Ronstadt made popular in 1975. It's not her song, but she's known for it because of her rendition. Now, here's the thing that I didn't understand. First of all, this was a total record company move, okay? The suggestion came from Ted Templeman. They obviously were going with the You Really Got Me formula, but the difference here is, Van Halen had already established themselves as an original hard rock act. I understand the You Really Got Me got them into the game. That's great. This was probably a safety that they wanted to throw in there because that's a hot song. But here's the thing that threw me off. This was already a number 1 hit single in 1975. Van Halen's covering it only 4 years later. So I thought that was a wrong move. I really thought the album should have opened up with Light Up the Sky. That would have been the album opener, in my opinion. But anyway, we'll get to that later. However, You're No Good was a song that they did in the club days. I gotta be honest, I think it's the weakest song on the album. However, there is a bright side to it, and I'll get into that. Like I said, it's a weird choice, but there is a bright side. And the bright side is, half the song is almost an original song. They take the main lyrics and theme in terms of the chords and stuff, but Eddie and Mike and Alex do so much to the song that has nothing to do with the original song that it almost reminds me of Dancing in the Street, where Dancing in the Street is the old classic Motown song, which is great, but there's so much on that. It's like turns into a Van Halen song because there's so much extra stuff on there. Whereas You Really Got Me had definitely a new spin on a classic rock song. Obviously, they added a lot to that as well. However, You Really Got Me took a new twist on it. This is not so much a new twist as like they reinvented the song. There's so many parts of this song that don't even sound like You're No Good. And they go into the main riff here and there, but it opens up with that beautiful Mikey bass. I love that. killer high yelps from Dave. Alex and Mike lay down this thick groove that is really kind of dark and